Hello, everyone, and good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Claire Bradley, and I am the Director of Irish Studies here at the International Institute of Genealogical Studies. This is August 2024's virtual meeting for Irish Studies. Can you believe we're almost at the end of August already? Before I dive into today's topic, does anyone have any questions about current coursework, any problems they would like to discuss? Now is the time to let me know. No? Great. Okay. So what I wanted to do today, do you have something to say, Kathy? No, you're good. What I wanted to do today was to talk about inward migration to Ireland. So I'm going to share my screen and then I will start talking. And you can just maybe give me a thumbs up and let me know that you can see it okay, please. Great. Okay. So we often talk in Irish research about people leaving Ireland for a better life. But actually, people also came to Ireland for a variety of reasons, and not just because it's awesome, but for lots of reasons. So we're going to talk today about some of the groups that came to Ireland and why they came. Now, what we're not going to discuss is British people coming to Ireland. We're not talking about plantations. We're not talking about the Ulster Plantation or Scottish Presbyterians coming to Ireland and settling in the north. We're not talking about Cromwell and so on, because we could spend hours just talking about that. And frankly, we have a lot of rage about that in Ireland. And it's a nice Saturday. We're not gonna talk about that today. So, but just be aware that English and Scottish people and to a lesser extent Welsh people have always made up the bulk of inward migrants in Ireland. And that wasn't for good reasons most of the time in the past. Just letting someone else in. Hello, Cheryl, you're very welcome. British people remain the largest non-Irish population in Ireland today. Though we have very healthy populations of Polish people and other Eastern European nationalities who moved here when the European Union expanded the freedom to live and work anywhere within the European Union. So we've got many Eastern Europeans in Ireland today. And we also have a very large host of Ukrainian refugees at the moment in Ireland because of the war. So we also have other international protection applicants, people who've come from Africa and many other places. So today Ireland is very diverse ethnically in a way that it was not in the past. So when we talk about people who came in the past to Ireland, they would have been exotic and unusual, and they would have stood out to people, and they often stayed within their own communities. So we are able to say they had a distinct impact in this way on a particular place. So we're not talking about English and Scottish people. We're mainly talking about these other groups. And I want to talk about three particular types of groups of people who would you might not be so familiar with. But first, I want to discuss what we call the push and pull factors for migration. As is terms that you might be familiar with if you've ever read up any academic papers on population movement. So push factors are, oh, hang on, I just saw something there, but I don't know what it was. Sorry, I thought I saw someone else come into the room, but I don't see oh, it's just Angie. Hi. So push factors encourage or force people to move to a new location or country. And there's a number of reasons that you might consider in this. So there are economic pressures. Maybe there's jobs there's job problems in where they're living, or there is religious persecution, or there's family reasons for them to go. Pull factors are what draw people to a new locality. One of the big things you'll be familiar with in Irish research is chain migration, where we had people from Ireland and they would go to America or Canada or Australia, and then they would write home and say, this is a good place, found a job, here's some money to send somebody else in a family to come out. And over time, they would end up with these communities in a different place that all came from one place in Ireland. So another reason people would move is because of availability of work. There might be economic disadvantages in the area they're living in, and they want to go to a new place where there's lots of money. And there may also be an established community of Irish people already in place for them. or indeed any other community. So these are what we call push and pull factors for migration. And this is valid whether you're moving within a country or to another country. So the linguistic difference is if you're moving within a country, we say migration. And if you're moving out of a country, it's emigration. And then the country that you're moving into is immigration. People, I see that mix those terms up quite a lot. And they're very similar, obviously. So I just wanted to explain those brief terms before we go into it. So in Ireland, there's three groups I want to talk about today. Now, they're not the only groups of people that we had come in the past. There's also a healthy contingent of Italian people who came to Ireland in the 19th century for work reasons and in the 20th century. And if you've ever been to Ireland and seen a fish and chip shop, often they are run by Italians who've come from Italy, and all come from one particular part of Italy. So they're quite interesting, but I'll maybe do another talk on those another day. Today, I want to talk about three particular groups. I want to talk about French Huguenots, German Palentines, and Jewish people. So I'm going to actually start with Jewish people. And I have to illustrate here a lovely picture of a Jewish wedding, which was taken by a famous photographer called Arthur Poole in Ireland, who lived in Waterford. And it shows the wedding of Esther Levin and Meyer Stein in 1901 and on the steps of the courthouse in Waterford City. And it comes from the National Library's collection. I just thought it was a lovely picture, so let's have that. So Ireland has always had a very small Jewish population. And so since the 13th century CE, we have evidence of Jewish people in Ireland. But for most of the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th century, we're talking about a really handful, a minor number of people, a couple of hundred, that sort of thing, very small. But the bulk of verifiable evidence begins in the 17th century for more Jewish people arriving. And when civil registration began in 1845, and we started with just non-Catholic marriages, you might remember, which was because the Catholic Church didn't want to get involved in this new system. That did include provision for Jewish marriage. And they must have included that because there was enough Jewish people who wanted to be included. If there was only a handful, they wouldn't have bothered. Now, although we don't have the 19th century census returns, we do have the statistical reports that went with those returns. So we can see the gradual increase in the mid to late 19th century of Jewish people coming to Ireland as they fled religious persecution in mostly what we would call Russia in the past, and is today many different countries, of course. So there would be lots of Lithuanian Jewish people, Latvian Jewish people, Russian and Polish. The census of 1881 shows that there were just under 500 people, 472 Jews in Ireland, in the whole of Ireland in 1881, which is obviously tiny. But by 1926, there were over 5,000. They predominantly lived in the large cities. And Dublin actually has a designated Jewish cemetery. And it has an area of Dublin on the south inner city is called Portobello, was actually known as Little Jerusalem because there were so many Jewish people there. My dad grew up near that area. Our family wasn't Jewish, but he grew up near that area, and there was a number of kosher shops and bakeries and so on. And he said you would see people with the hats and the curls that he remembers when he was a child. That's less so now. The last census of Ireland showed that there was only about 2,000 Jewish people in Ireland now. But we do have a couple of synagogues in Dublin. There was one in Cork until relatively recently, but it closed a couple of years ago. So when you are looking at Jewish people in Ireland, you often see a very interesting thing. And I encourage you to go onto the census website and go to the search engine, the more search engine part. We'll demo it at the end if we have time. And instead of putting a name in, just search by religion and pull up some references to Jewish people. And you'll often see that you've got a clear case that the family has migrated because the parents and perhaps the older children were born abroad. They'd be born in Russia or Poland or something like that. And then you'll see that the younger children were born in Dublin. Now, a lot of Jewish people, even though they came and they settled here and maybe they stayed here for a generation or two, a lot of them moved on either to America or to Israel. So former president of Israel, Herzog, was actually born in Belfast, because his family lived in Ireland and then they moved to Israel. So you do get a connection still to the communities um, today, but it's a small group. And if you do find that you have a Jewish name in your family tree, or you look at your DNA test and you find you've got some Jewish DNA, well, then you're probably going to be very excited, because in Ireland there is one Jewish genealogist, one Jewish Irish genealogist. His name is Stuart Rosenblatt. He's fairly elderly now, and he actually lives in London these days, where his children have moved to. But he has basically done all of your work for you already. He has, I'm gonna have a slide with resources at the end. His website, basically, he's tried his best to find absolutely every piece of evidence of every Jewish person who's ever lived in Ireland, even for a short time, and an immense amount of work, which I believe amounts to 16 volumes. And there are copies in the various libraries in Ireland, but there are also databases on his own website, and I think Ancestry has a copy of it now as well. So probably you would find that Stuart has done all of your work for you. But it is a phenomenal piece of work. He actually took the same course that I did my original genealogy certificate. He took he took that same course as me. A side note is, though, that what he won't have caught is people who didn't live in Ireland for a very long time. A man that I helped had discovered, or they knew in his family, that his great grandfather had been Jewish. The family had been in Belfast at the time, and this man had come along. I don't believe the parents were married, but he was there long enough to have a couple of children with a woman, and then he disappeared. And they actually didn't know where he'd gone, but he was well remembered. They had photographs of him, and his name was on the birth certificates of the children and so on. And when I first knew this man, I said, "Oh, have you talked to Stuart?" He said, "I have talked to Stuart. Stuart actually said that I must be wrong, that my great grandfather wasn't Jewish, because he wasn't in his database." And but what had happened was that he'd kind of fallen between the cracks of records. So he wasn't there on the 1901 census. He was gone by the 1911 census. And so, you can't look at indexed records by father's name. You have to open every record and check it. So Stuart had missed this guy, but the man I was helping was very confident that his ancestor was Jewish. His father's DNA test showed that he was 1/4 Jewish. His showed 1/8. Everyone was very satisfied. And actually, one of the reasons he was taking my class was that he was trying to find out what had happened to this guy. He reckoned that he'd gone to America, but he had a quite common Jewish name and he hadn't had much success. But anyway, so we have a small Jewish population, but they are very well established and they're very well documented, which is interesting, and of course not the norm in Ireland. The next group I want to talk about are Huguenots. And this picture here, just to show you, is the Huguenot Cemetery in Dublin, which is just off St. Stephen's Green in the city, and it's particularly beautiful. It's not usually open to the public, but it's actually just gated, so you can just see it from the side of the road like this. This photo was taken inside it, but you can see right through the gates to see it all the time. So, firstly, what are Huguenots? Huguenots are French Protestants. And they were identified by this name by the middle of the 16th century, but we're not entirely sure where the name comes from. Now, in doctrinal terms, they're closer to Presbyterians than Anglicans. They followed Calvinist thinking. And France was a Catholic country. And throughout the 16th century, they were persecuting anyone who wasn't a Catholic, basically, and fleeing religious persecution. Even though there had finally, at the end of the 16th century, been an edict in Nantes that allowed religious freedom, people were still not happy. So they first went to the Low Countries, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and so on. And from there, they spread into Britain and Ireland. But they were in quite large numbers. And the Duke of Ormond, the first Duke of Ormond, James Butler, who was then the Lord Lieutenant of Ireland, by the middle of the 17th century, he invited French Huguenots to come to Ireland. And he had I mean, it wasn't quite a nefarious purpose in mind, but he saw that there was a good compromise here, that these people needed housing, and he wanted people who had skills, industrial skills, to come to Ireland and set up businesses and teach their crafts to native Irish people. So in 1662, he invited Huguenots to come and settle in Ireland, and he established colonies in Dublin, in Cork, and a few other places. They introduced glove making, silk weaving, lace making, and manufacture of cloth and linen. So really important trades to learn that would be useful for Ireland. He also settled linen weavers in Chapelizod in County Dublin, and woolen manufacturers in Carrick-on-Suir and in Clonmel in Tipperary in the Midlands. Port Arlington in County Laois, which was then known as Queen's County, was a particular Huguenot settlement where they worshipped at a church that became known as, and is still known as, the French Church, because it was originally French people who used it. Excuse me. Now, the Huguenots, like other settler populations, intermarried with Irish people who were predominantly Catholic. So the irony is that French Protestants who had fled religious persecution, within a couple of generations, many of them had become Catholics themselves. I actually have a French surname in my family, which is Guérins. It's Guerin. So in French, we pronounce Guérin. And that is a name that appears in Huguenot records, but I actually can't track far enough back to be sure that my family were originally Huguenots. But my mother's ethnicity estimate does show a healthy portion of sort of Central Europe, France, Germany, which perhaps indicates that we did have some Huguenot ancestry. All told, about 10,000 Huguenots were settled in Ireland, so it's a much larger population than the Jewish people. And we have surnames like Boucicault. There's a famous playwright called Dion Boucicault in the 19th century who would have been of Huguenot descent. Mathurin Le Fanu, Sheridan Le Fanu, another famous writer, and Trench, who were famous bankers. All still extant in Ireland today. There is a very active Huguenot society. It's for Britain and Ireland, but they have an Ireland branch, obviously. But it can be quite difficult to connect Irish people in the modern day back into those records if it wasn't already known that they were part of them. But there's some very good academic work on the Huguenots, so plenty to dive into. The last group that I want to discuss today are the German Palatines. Now, you'll be saying, what on earth is this picture? I will explain it now in a minute. The Palatines were also Protestant refugees, but they were from what became Germany, but was not Germany in the 18th century. So in May 1709, a large number of inhabitants from around the Hesse and Baden area, sort of Mannheim in modern Germany, they were forced off their land by wars between Francis King Louis XIV, the Sun King, and a confederacy that included England. So basically, because of war, they were displaced. 3,000 refugees were resettled initially in Ireland by Queen Anne. And her purpose, again, she wanted there to be more Protestants in Ireland. That there wasn't enough Protestants for her liking, and here was some ready-made Protestants that we could just part in. So they were settled in two main locations in Ireland. One of them was Limerick around Rathkeale, and the other one was Gorey in County Wexford. So if we go back to the map there at the start, I'll just show you. So Limerick, Rathkeale, and Gorey down here. So quite different places. But it wasn't as successful. It wasn't as successful as the Huguenot settlement. Many of them did not stay very long term, and many of the original settlers actually left themselves and moved on to Britain or America, where there had also been colonies established in New York and North Carolina of Palatines. So at the same time, because of course America was still part of the British Empire at that stage, so at the same time as that they were resettling people in Britain and Ireland, they were also sending them to America and settling them there. However, Palatine surnames do survive to a good extent in Ireland today. And the acknowledged academic is a woman who just finished a PhD a couple of years ago. Her name is Claire McCormick. And she has a very good blog. If you Google her name and Palatine, you find a lot of information. I fully expect that her doctoral thesis will become a book at some point, but it hasn't just yet. So we've got some interesting surnames that still appear in Ireland today: Ruttle, Sparling, Teskey, Fizell, and Switzer. And Switzer will be, if you're ever in Ireland in the past, Switzer's was a very famous department store on Grafton Street in Dublin, where modern day Brown Thomas is. And they were very famous for their Christmas windows. So that's what you're seeing there is a picture of their Christmas window in the 1960s. And so people would be taken in to see the Christmas windows in Switzer's every year. It was part of the Christmas experience in Dublin. And Switzer's are very well known and regarded. And they were original Palatine family who stayed in Ireland and obviously flourished. So I want to just talk about some resources. Now, there is a lot more information in our course on immigration, emigration, and naturalization on this topic, and I've taken some of my references from there today. So I just wanted to give you a few to whet your appetite. HuguenotsinIreland.com. That is their main website. It's a little dated in look, and they are also still selling CD-ROMs. I'm not sure who's buying them and what device they were able to play them on. But a lot of the records for the Huguenots have been digitized, and they're probably just waiting for someone to come along and buy them and put them on a database rather than on a CD-ROM. And there are also many books and libraries about Huguenots. There's also a very good resource document, which is in, what's it called? The Brigham Young Journal. So BYU's Journal of Genealogy has a very good, quite long, sort of 50-page document about Huguenots in Ireland, which is a really good resource. Irish Jewish Roots.com is Stuart Rosenblatt's own website, which is the place I mentioned to look at Jewish records if you have interest. And then the Irish Palatines Association, that's their website there, which is the best starting place. There's also a little museum in Rathkeale if you're ever in Limerick about the Palatines. So they're just a few little resources to get started on. That is the end of what I wanted to say, but I have time for questions. And I also am going to do a little quick demo of the census website and just show you how to find the additional sources. So let me just quickly do that, and then we can have a chat. It's always a delicate balancing act trying to find the different parts of your computer when you've got Zoom open and you're going to move things around. Go back. There we go. Okay, so I know we've all seen this website before, but it's not always clear that this is a hyperlink to go to the more search options. So I like to remind everyone of this every now and then. So you go from basic search to more search options. And then you get all of the different columns that are indexed on the census website, and you can search by different things. So this is a list of the main religions that were categorized. And then they have this lovely other category, which I really enjoy looking at just to see what have people put in that category. So if we go to Jewish people, and you don't have to put anything else in, you can just do that. And you can see there, it's given me the 1911 census. It's just under 5,000 people in 1911 who have identified as being Jewish. And you can sort that, and you can see birthplaces. So there's some people who were born in Dublin, some people who were born in Russia, and you can see the wide variety of different places that they came from: Poland, Belfast, Rathmines. Bear in mind, when you were looking at Jewish names, that there will be quite a bit of variability in the spelling of them. And the census website does not allow soundex on this particular version of it. So you need to think about other ways that the spelling might be done. I just spot someone called Estella Solomons there, and I'm wondering, there's a famous artist who's Jewish called Estella Solomons. I think that might be her. Possibly. So you can see, you can just search through it and find what you're looking for. Lancashire. That's interesting, isn't it? So anyway, and you can see some people have written a quite variety of different ways to describe their religion: German Jew, Jew, Hebrew, Jewish faith, and so on. So you can search like that to find people with a different religion if you're interested. If you look at Plymouth Brethren there, there's a very small number of people who are Plymouth Brethren in Ireland, which maybe we'll do a lecture on that someday, because actually Plymouth Brethrens were founded in Ireland, which is not something people often know. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we have time for a bit of chat if anyone has any questions or comments just as we come to the end.
No one
Don't
has
all speak at once.
If no one has any questions, I would like to share some very special things with you about Claire's work and then about some stuff that's coming up. So Claire has recorded a very special event for an October 18th coming up event. We will post that so that you can follow that link. And she's going to be speaking for a huge Texas library system. So that's really exciting coming up, and that's October 18th. So we want to make sure that you'll check the announcements on the calendar. We'll be posting that next week. And then we'll add the link as soon as they send it over to us. So they're preparing all of that. But just to give you a heads up next week, and then after that, when the link becomes available, we'll post it again so that you can attend her talk for that. But you can attend all of the other talks as well. So that's really nice. I wanted to also note to you that she has done an amazing bit of work, and I'm going to read off of her work for us. But she's done an amazing bit of work for us on revamping the Irish program completely. So when you get your Irish credentials from the International Institute of Genealogical Studies, she has spent over a year already, and she has one more class that she's going to write. And we've already revamped Understanding Ireland History and Source Records, completely new class. Archival repositories, and remember, these are all within the Irish class list for getting your Irish records credentials. And then she's also done census and census substitutes. She's done Irish civil registration, and this is the important announcement. This one will be live online by a week from today. It'll be next Friday, actually. This is a Saturday, the 24th of August, 2024, as we speak. And that new course will go online on the 20, it'll go online 1 week from now. And then she's already done Irish religious records, which is a complete revamp as well. When I'm
There's more
saying,
about the Huguenots and the Palatines in that one too.
oh, excellent. Yes. And we'll use this
The
video
people.
that we're doing today to put into the immigration, naturalization, and immigration. But we also, because of what she's done with these three groups, put it into that religious records group so that you can catch that in either course. And of course, it'll be on our news and our calendar and news page on the genealogicalstudies.com website. Okay, coming up, she has already done her work. Behind the scenes, we're doing our work. Takes a couple of months per course to get them completely edited once she's turned them in, and then get them put up online and retire the old course and put up the new course. So that's why it takes a little bit of time. And
There's a
then,
lot of work that goes into it, guys. You've no idea. You know, I send them my stuff, and sometimes I opened one of the ones that I have revised but isn't ready yet, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to do that again. And there was something I noticed in it that I wasn't quite happy about, and I thought, oh, it's good they haven't got to that one yet.
well, you can send it to us. So we'll
It's just some typos. I know you would have picked them up, but I was like, how did I miss those?
Well, if I haven't got to it yet, I haven't picked it up yet, but I will. So she's done some amazing work. I'm not kidding. And then we have coming up, those were in your basic level. The intermediate level includes Irish land and property records, Irish newspapers, and other printed sources. This is a complete new course rewrite because it used to be Irish
I think it was
uh,
called Major Printed Sources.
sources. You're going to still see that online currently until we retire that course and put up the new course, but I'll be on to these pretty quickly. Then you're going to see Irish wills and testamentary records, Irish monumental inscriptions and graves. And then the one that I'm actually starting work on next, which will be up before some of the others in the intermediate, because it affects three different credential groups. British military records is going to be coming in. It's going to include Ireland up through 1922. Claire had a big part in that. And that one will be going online first in the intermediate level before the others because it affects English records certification and it affects Scottish records certification. And so this brand new course has had 3 different writers working on it, which is, of course, our wonderful Claire, and then we have Brenda Wheeler, and then we also had Allison Spring who worked on it with us. And so Allison has had to retire, but we thank her so much for the work that she did to help us. Another course that, and that one will be going online probably toward the end of September, beginning of October. I'll be working as fast as I can. So take that with a grain of salt. The one you want to know that's going online next week, early September, I think. Sorry, I said next week, early September, will be the new Latin for genealogists. That one Claire had a big part in too. We have had no less than 6 of our instructors writing in that course, as well as Sue DeGroot, who is our director of student curriculum, and then myself. And we've all had input into this course. We've all been working really hard on it. I finished the edits last night.
And this one is good. This one is really good because I don't claim to read Latin, but I have to use it in my work all the time because many Catholic records for Ireland are written in Latin. So that was my input, was to give examples and show the types of records you're going to find in Latin in Ireland. So it's really going to have a lot of cross-board appeal, I think, for everybody.
I think it's going to be pretty fabulous. I even learned a lot from the different countries as these things were being put together. It was pretty amazing. And there's tool lists in there that, just like the samples that each one of the people shared, there's lists of words that you're going to want to keep. So you're going to want to download this course material. You're going to want to keep it, put it in your briefcase, take it with you to do your research when you're in the repositories and things. So it's pretty amazing. I know these are a lot of announcements, but it's pretty exciting for this start of the new year. Even though we're a 12-month school, everybody's thinking about back to school. I wanted you to know all these new things coming out at the very end of August and into mid-September. So Latin for genealogists will be online no later than mid-September. And I've turned it over to Sue. She's now building it into the website. And we'll be putting our instructors in there so that if you have a question, they can go in and check and see what it is you're working with, and they'll be able to mentor you on your particular issue in that particular country or field of records within Latin for genealogists. So that they'll be there. Mentoring appointments, of course, are always available. They're 30 minutes at a time, and they are $30 US, and that's because we do pay our mentors to work with you for a half hour at a time. If you have a quick question, you can always drop it in the chat note on the website, which is in the bottom right-hand corner. So to let you know that. The advanced records courses are the Irish Immigration, Naturalization, and Immigration Records, the Irish Estate, Plantation, and Settlement, Irish Court Records, State Papers, Parliamentary Records, and Electoral and Taxation Records. We might shorten that title, but that's what's on it. It might be more in the description. And then Crime and Punishment is coming up, and that's the one she's going to be working on. I expect some of these will continue to replace the courses through the next 6 months or so. And then the Crime and Punishment, we're just waiting for when Claire's ready to be done with it, she'll give us the work and we'll give you a date that one will go online. These will be wonderful for you going through. And if you'd like to know more about them, we do have the brand new 2024-2025 IIGS course catalog. We'll have it available at Roots Tech, and Roots Tech, by the way, is coming up in March 4th through the 8th, basically that week. And it's important that you know that if you're asking for, if you're ordering course materials and you're asking for a free copy to be sent to you, I will be sending the 8.5 by 11. It will be in full color. And we have this one for ease of read if you require large print. This one is a much more expensive one to print, so it's not the one I would normally mail. But online, for ease of print, ease of reading as well, you can go to the calendar and news page. There's an announcement there where you can download the IIGS course catalog for you. Now, the next big announcement, my last one for the day, thank you so much for letting me pop in here, is we have a personal historian credential certificate coming out in September. And I'm very excited about that. That one is going to include 25 courses. And any of the courses you've taken that match within that program are going to, you don't have to retake them. They'll automatically apply to that credential. The personal historian credentials are all about working one-on-one with an individual, or with, say, a house or farm history, or with a business or organization. Some of them want their histories preserved and written, and sometimes our elders have not told their stories. A personal historian is someone who would sit down and interview an elder. You might video them, you might write their book, you might write for an entire family or create a family reunion and be at that family reunion and take interviews during the whole family reunion. And then you would compile that into a book for the family. So there's a lot of wonderful things you can do, and we'll do a special event when that about that personal historian credential, so we give you some more ideas of what you can use it for. But I wanted to make sure that you all knew about that today, and that you knew that Claire was not only working on her Irish courses, but that she was also working on some of these other courses for you. So, and don't forget, you can always hire Claire as a mentor through the school just by purchasing it at the genealogystore.com. And you can go to there through your student account, genealogicalstudies.com, easiest way to do it. Or drop a note in the chat app and let me know and I'll help you out. So thank you so much for a fabulous presentation, Claire. And now, if anybody else has had questions that have come up, I want to give you that time.
Anyone? No? Okay. Well, if you don't have any questions, we will leave it there for today. And I haven't quite decided yet what we're going to talk about next month, but watch out on our socials because Kim will advertise it for me when I do decide. Um, and if you do ever have any ideas for something, you're like, oh, I'd like Claire to talk about that, drop me a note and let me know. And I'll see if I can put it into the schedule. And for those of you who come to the DNA classes, you will see me for the next DNA meeting as well, of course. So that's it for today. Thanks for everyone for giving up your Saturday morning to come along, and we'll see you soon. I'm going to stop the recording.